you know, then you eat. Wow, you really eat, oh my god. Wow, you're really eating, oh. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. It's me, Joyce here. It's been a while since my last video, guys, about Typhoon Ulysses. It's really sad story, but then today we think about what video we are going to do again, and we decided to do this True Ghost Stories animated, guys. Yeah, so hopefully you will enjoy this video, guys. And okay, so let's go.
We are missing one person here.
Oh yeah. Caitlin is not with us. She doesn't want to join us today, but me and Catherine will be going to entertain you guys. So okay guys.
So this happened a few years ago when my daughter was around 4 years old. My daughter started talking about her friend Emily. After hearing stories about Emily, I concluded she wasn't a real person. I just chalked it up to my daughter's imagination, as she was creative. One day I was home alone, just having coffee and watching TV, when I heard my daughter's toys going off. They were all the sort that had to be pressed and pushed to make noise. I got up and went to her room. Along with the toys going off, the light on her small fish tank was on, even though I knew I had turned it off. I was a bit freaked out. I noticed it was time to go pick my daughter up from school, so I switched the light off and left. On the way home, I thought I'd talk to her about Emily. She started telling me a lot of details, like Emily is 18 and has long brown hair, and her full name is Emily Rose Ward, and she died when she got sick. My great-grandma's surname was Ward, and I knew she had 2 sisters. One of her sisters was named Emily and died of tuberculosis when she was 18. I'm now convinced she was my daughter's friend during this time. I've never told this story to anyone, as my family are very much if you can't see it, feel it, or hear it, it doesn't exist. I was at my cousin's wake back in July of 2017 when I suddenly had this constant feeling to keep looking at him in his casket. Whenever I would turn away or get distracted, there was this feeling to keep watching him. I knew he was dead. I could smell the faint scent of death on him. He'd been dead for at least 11 days by the time his wake was held. I was watching him in his casket when suddenly I felt a jolt of electricity that ran through me. At the same time, the lamp at the foot of his casket dimmed. I quickly looked back at my cousin and saw his fingers move. His hands were placed in the usual top hand over bottom hand position. Suddenly, he quickly flexed his middle, ring, and pinky fingers of his left hand. It reminded me of when he would pop his knuckles. His left hand fingers then flexed the OK position for like half a second. This all happened within seconds, and I have no idea of how to explain what I saw that day. In autumn of 2018, I broke my left foot and it required surgery. I lived in a not-so-nice neighborhood in southwest Detroit. Due to my surgery, I had been staying with family while I recuperated. After the first few days, I drove home to gather some clothes and planned on staying there and driving back to my family's house the next day. I crutched into my house and was simultaneously talking with a friend that called moments before. I really needed to pee, and with the phone nestled between my ear and shoulder, I made my way to the bathroom. With me talking and the noise of the crutches, I thought I was hearing noises from my attic. But it wasn't until I got into my bathroom and stopped that I was sure someone or something was upstairs. I said to my friend something along the lines of, "Hang on a second, there's something upstairs." The initial split-second thought was an animal in the house. No sooner than I said that, the loudest boom came down on the floor. It seemed to be directly above me. It sounded like the weight of a full-grown man. Here are some details about the attic. The attic could have been converted into a bedroom that went the full length of the house, and I'm 6 feet tall, and I could stand up right if I was in the middle. My friend on the phone was immediately surprised and also heard the loud noise. She thought I had fallen. I told her it wasn't me and that someone probably broke in. I hurried to the front door and was expecting someone to come busting out of my house somewhere. I put the phone back to my ear and told my friend I would call her back so I could deal with the situation. Not even a second after hanging up my phone, a police cruiser turned out of an alley onto my block. I quickly waved it down. These weren't the typical police. Like I said, this wasn't the greatest area. It was an unmarked police car with plain-clothed officers. I explained what had just happened, how I had just come home and thought someone was in my house. 4 policemen, weapons drawn, embarked throughout my house. They got to the stairs and called out "Detroit Police" several times and headed up. I waited at the bottom, and in a minute or so they made their descent and told me nobody's there. As quickly as they entered, they made their exit. I thanked them and they drove away. Now at most, 8 minutes had lapsed, and I'm trying to digest everything. I wondered
everything.
what the hell I had heard. Not even 20 seconds went by when I heard a dragging sound. It started at the rear of the attic and grew louder as it got close to the middle. The sound was right above me, and I heard the loudest crash yet. It was like someone was trying to crash right through the floor to me. I left back to my family's place.
There's something up there, Mumu.
When I was 23,
That's creepy.
I started getting into online dating and met a girl that I started talking to pretty frequently. Eventually, I went over to her place to spend some time with her and her family. At the doorway, she stopped me and said, "There's only one rule at my house. Don't knock on the walls because they knock back." We had talked about the
Don't knock on the
paranormal, but she
walls.
never really went into great detail about her house. I agreed, and we, along with her friend, her brother, and his friend, were smoking and chatting for a few hours until the girl I was with said she had to run to the store. While she was out, I couldn't help myself and dared her brother's friend to knock on the wall because he was the only one that didn't know about the rule, and he immediately did. Everyone in the room went quiet for a moment, and when nothing noticeable happened, we began talking again until we heard what sounded like someone aggressively pushing her dresser. Her brother jumped up frantically and said, "What the heck was that?" We all sat
You
there
knocked,
quietly
though?
to see if anything else would happen, and slowly worked our way back into conversation. When she got back, she joined us in conversation until she got this look on her face. She kinda cocked her head to the side slightly as if someone was whispering in her ear and just blurted out, "Who knocked on my wall?" Nobody had touched their phone the entire time we were sitting there. There's no possible way she could have known that someone had knocked on her wall. That still creeps me out, no matter how many times I tell that
Meaning?
story. My experiences as a funeral director. Due to my profession,
director.
I come across the dead and anything related more often than your average Joe. In the past 8 years, I've been working as a funeral director here in Germany. My colleagues and I have experienced numerous unexplainable things that stuck with us. Out of these, I'd like to share one with you today that was as clear as day and surely not my imagination. This story begins at the end of a pickup in the middle of the night around 2 a.m. We had just finished rolling the casket into the cooling unit and were sitting by the desk around the corner filling in our nighttime sheets. You need to know that our hygienic area and the makeshift office are separated by our cache of caskets waiting to be put to use. The light there is always off, so all the lighting you get is the faint shimmer of cold white light coming from the hygienic area. I looked to my left as I finished writing my timesheet and was startled to see a dark figure standing right on the walkway between the caskets, illuminated from the back by the mentioned light. I slowly poked my colleague to look. He also saw the figure, and after a few seconds of blank staring, I called out to it, thinking it was one of our other colleagues maybe. No answer, so I called out a second time. Yet again, nothing.
Why would
Since
someone
we
look
had
there?
intruders in the funeral home
Closer.
before, both of us got up and slowly walked towards the figure, further calling out to it. About halfway towards the figure, it suddenly turned away and audibly walked out of sight towards the cooling unit. My colleague and I quickly followed, but as we got around the corner, nothing was there. The big back door was still locked, and the only window was barred up and cluttered with stuff anyways. Out of fear of an actual intruder, we looked around, searching anywhere, but gave up eventually. Both of us are sure we saw a ghost that night, since it was too clear to just be
So
some
what was?
shadow. I'd be happy to hear your thoughts on that.
Yes,
Because
it is.
we are still looking for some explanation. It was my last day being a senior in high school. The year was 2016. The creepy clown phenomenon was in full
It.
swing. Creepy clowns seemed to be
Pennywise.
popping up all over the world. Most clown
Why
cases
this
were
creepy clown is very
harmless
popular?
and just
You
pranks.
scared?
I was looking forward
scared?
to signing yearbooks
Scared
and
not?
saying
If the one
Yeah,
pop up in
goodbyes to
front of
close
me,
friends.
or
Slap him.
Who knew that my day was about to change in a way I could never imagine? Word got around that 2 seniors, Trevor and Noah, were planning a prank. They were the class clowns of our class, no pun intended. I received word that they were going to dress up as killer clowns and terrorize the teachers. I instantly thought it was a bad idea, but I wasn't against some good entertainment. I tried to find more information about the prank, but the only thing that kept coming up was 4th period lunch. I assumed
this
that's when the
prank
shenanigans
is
would
really
start.
not good.
4th period of lunch started. There was no sign of clowns. Finally, I saw a clown. He was just outside the main cafeteria doors, hiding behind a statue of our school mascot.
Just thinking about the
His
clown only
appearance
then.
was so creepy. I was really appearance
Red
was
nose.
so
What's the song again? Rudolph the
Rudolph.
red-nosed reindeer had a very shiny nose.
creepy. I was really impressed. I didn't really think Trevor or Noah would be that creative. One by one, students began to notice the clown. Most of the guys thought it was amusing. Some girls, however, were fearful and started crying. I looked out one of the side windows and saw another clown. This had to be
Pennywise.
it, I thought. There they are, Trevor and Noah. It was right then that I saw 2 more clowns. They were hiding behind support poles in front of the cafeteria.
Pennywise.
I thought this was weird, but I just assumed more people had to be in on the prank. All of a sudden, the power went out. I thought, classic Trevor and Noah, always taking things too far. The school's PA system came on over the loudspeaker. Code Black. Follow full lockdown procedures. Repeat,
Full lockdown.
Code Black.
School one,
I
ma,
wondered
US
if
one.
I should tell one of the teachers about the prank. I thought this was getting out of hand and was going too far. Right then, the back door to the cafeteria busted open. It was Trevor and Noah. They were in their normal school clothes. They both had a ghostly white look across their face. Both were also drenched in sweat. Noah screamed, "Killer clowns! They're everywhere!" Half the cafeteria was dead silent. Another half laughed and thought this was a complete joke. Trevor said, "This is not a joke. Clowns chased us with real knives." I glanced outside again. There were 2 clowns at the main cafeteria doors. Both were wielding knives. They slowly dragged their knives across the glass. Based on the loud screeching sound the knives
So
made,
this one is a true story?
I had no doubt they were real. I looked at both side exits, and clowns were there as well. There was no way out. I started to get nervous. Everyone was in disbelief as to what was happening. The door that Noah and Trevor ran through swung open again. I thought to myself, what idiots for not locking the door behind them. It was a creepy clown. His outfit and face paint was exactly like Pennywise from the movie It. He went over to a table full of girls and pulled a huge knife from his waistband. He began laughing in a high-pitched voice, almost as if he was crazed. I heard a loud rumbling noise. A huge SWAT emergency response vehicle pulled up right in front of the cafeteria. The creepy clown in the cafeteria dropped his knife and ran. The other clowns bolted as well. Only one clown ended up getting arrested, and it was a senior from a rival high school. I hope no one's last day of high school is as creepy as mine was.
So what is this clown one?
I was
Last
only
one,
in
guys.
first grade, but my memory of that day is
Last
still
one, guys.
crystal clear. My class had just finished
Naantok
lunch,
na ako.
and we went
Sleepy.
outside for recess. Our school had a massive playhouse. I was very rebellious at the time, and I hated when recess ended. When the teacher called all the students inside, I tried to see how long I could hide in the playhouse for.
Is it I?
Eventually, I heard
No,
nothing
I don't.
but silence.
See,
I thought there was no way my teacher didn't notice me missing. I stood up and looked around. Sure enough, there was no one in sight. It felt awesome being alone without any adult supervision. After a few minutes by myself, I thought I should go inside. I was worried the longer I stayed outside, the harder it would be to explain myself to my teacher. Right when I was about to jump off the playhouse, alarms started to go off. Startled, I hid inside the playhouse. I was too young to know what a lockdown was, but I knew something wasn't right. I stood up again and looked around. I made eye contact with a guy right outside the playground's fence.
Gun.
He was wearing all black. He started to try and scale the fence. That's when I noticed he had a gun. My fight or flight response kicked in. My instincts told me to run. I jumped off the playhouse and ran towards the exterior door. I tried to pull on the handle, but it was locked. I heard a thud behind me. I looked over my shoulder. The creepy man had just landed on my side of the fence and was headed in my direction. I began screaming. I started to kick in and punch the door out of desperation. Finally, a teacher opened the door and yanked me inside. I noticed the teacher who pulled me in was Mrs. Jones. I was in her class the previous year. She led me to a classroom full of students and told me to crouch down behind a desk. I heard someone banging on the exterior door and thought this had to be the guy with the gun. The banging stopped for a brief second. I then heard the sound of a body slamming into the door. A few seconds of silence, then another slam. I waited, expecting to hear a third slam. It didn't come. About 20 seconds went by, then I heard a loud boom. The guy must have hit the door running at full speed. I heard the door swing open and hit the wall. The intruder was in the school. He started banging on our classroom door. With one kick, our door swung open. Mrs. Jones stood in between us and the intruder. The man pointed the gun at her head and yelled, "Where is that bitch?" Mrs. Jones said, "Sir, I don't know what you're talking about, but if you could just..." Before she could finish her sentence, the man said, "Where is Miss Julie?" I shuddered. Miss Julie was my teacher. Mrs. Jones was silent. The man said, "So that's how we're going to play this, huh?" The man violently grabbed Mrs. Jones and pulled her out into the hallway. The last thing I saw was the man forcing Mrs. Jones down the hallway towards Miss Julie's room. We all sat in silence for what seemed like an eternity.
This one is not a ghost
Then
story,
we
really.
heard a loud,
Horror.
followed by another. I knew right then that Miss Julie was gone.
Miss Julie was gone. That one is Miss.
Guys,
What's that mean?
no more.
So that's the end of the video today, guys. I hope you did enjoy it, and please like, share, and subscribe my channel, and hope to see you next on my next one. So bye bye, guys.